The massive ship moved through space like a dark mountain of metal and death. Its hull was black as the void itself, covered in sharp edges that could slice through other vessels. This was the Bloodfang flagship of the 47th Hunting Fleet, and it carried within it the most feared warriors in the galaxy. Commander Thal stood on the bridge, his 8-foot frame towering over the control panels. His crystalline skin caught the red light from the weapon displays, creating patterns that looked like flowing lava. His forearms moved with deadly grace as he studied the star charts. Each of his claws was sharp enough to cut through battle armor, and his yellow eyes could see across the entire light spectrum. "Target acquired, Commander," reported Subcommander Kess, her voice a low growl that made the air vibrate.
Ah.
"The system designation is Sol-3, intelligence reports indicate. Primitive life forms." Thal's mandibles clicked together in what passed for a smile among the Velthic. Primitive life forms. How disappointing. I was hoping for a real challenge. He turned to face his crew, all of them towering beings of crystal and bone. Me about these creatures. The intelligence officer, a scarred veteran named Drex, activated the holographic display. Images of small, soft-bodied bipeds appeared in the air. Call themselves humans, Commander. They have thin skin, weak bones, and require artificial atmospheres to survive in space. They only recently achieved faster-than-light communication. Pathetic. Thal muttered. What about their world? Their planet is mostly water, Commander. They have a single moon and a yellow star. The gravity is only 1/3 of Korthok Prime. The atmosphere is thin and contains poisonous gases that would kill most species. Thal's eyes narrowed. Poisonous gases? Yes, Commander. Something they call oxygen.
Oxygen.
It causes rapid oxidation. In most materials, very dangerous. The bridge crew shared looks of disgust. Only the most desperate species would live on a world filled with corrosive gases. These humans must be truly weak to survive only in such a hostile environment. About their military? Thal asked. Drex manipulated the display, showing crude metal ships with basic energy weapons. They have no real fleet, Commander. A few dozen vessels at most. Their largest ship is smaller than our fighters. They use primitive projectile weapons. And chemical explosives? Chemical explosives? Thal's voice carried a note of confusion. Are they trying to harm themselves? It appears so, Commander. They seem to use controlled explosions for propulsion in combat. Very inefficient and dangerous. Subcommander Kess leaned forward. Commander, perhaps we should simply glass the planet from orbit. These beings sound too weak to be worth capturing. Thal considered this for a moment. The Velthak Empire had been expanding for 3,000 years, conquering world after world. They had faced the acid-spitting Morocks of Terminus, the energy-manipulating Zenth from the Crystal Moons, and countless other species. All had fallen before Velthak might. But lately, the victories had become too easy.
Ow.
The Empire's gladiatorial. Arenas demanded fresh blood, new challenges. The Emperor himself had grown bored with the weak species they had been encountering. No, Thal decided. We follow standard protocol. We will demonstrate our superiority, demand their submission, and harvest the strongest specimens for the games. Even weak prey can provide entertainment if properly motivated. The bridge erupted in approving growls and clicks. The hunt was always more satisfying than simple destruction. How long until we reach their system? Thal asked. 6 cycles, Commander, replied the navigation officer. Good. Signaled the fleet. We approach in hunting formation. I want these humans to see death coming for them. As the Bloodfang changed course toward the Sol system, its escort vessels fell into position around it. 47 ships of various sizes, all bristling with weapons that could crack planets. The smallest of these vessels was larger than anything the humans had ever built. In the depths of the flagship, Velthak warriors prepared for battle.
Ow.
They sharpened their claws on grinding stones, tested their electromagnetic senses, and performed the ritual combat dances that had preceded every hunt for millennia. These were beings who had evolved on a world where the very air burned with volcanic gases, where gravity crushed weaker species, and where only the strongest survived each day. Korthok Prime was not just their home world, it was their forge. Every Velthak alive had ancestors who had survived meteor impacts, supervolcanic eruptions, and gravity storms that could flatten mountains. They breathed gases that would dissolve the lungs of most species. They considered a day without at least one life-threatening challenge to be boring. The youngest warriors, those who had only lived through 50 or 60 planetary disasters, practiced their combat forms with eager anticipation. The older veterans, scarred by hundreds of battles across dozens of worlds, prepared their weapons with careful precision. Del, Midrex, Thal said as he watched the preparation rituals. What do these humans do for entertainment? The intelligence officer consulted his files. They appeared to engage in various forms of play, Commander. They chase small spheres around enclosed areas, they swim in their corrosive water, and they perform what they call sports. Sports? Physical competitions, Commander? They run, jump, and throw objects at each other. Very primitive. Thal nodded, dismissively, as expected. A weak species can only engage in weak activities. He paused. What about their warriors? How do they train? They have military organizations, Commander, but their training appears to be minimal. Practice with their primitive weapons and perform basic physical exercises. Nothing compared to the trials of Korthak Prime. The commander's confidence grew. This would be another easy conquest. The humans would see the Velthok fleet approaching and immediately surrender. Perhaps a few would show enough courage to be worth capturing for the games, but most would probably collapse from fear alone. Set course for maximum intimidation approach, Thal ordered. I want every human on that world to see us coming. Fear will make them more compliant. As the fleet moved through space, automated systems began broadcasting the standard conquest message in the common galactic language. The message was simple: submit or be destroyed. It had worked on every world the Velthok had encountered, but as the ships approached the edge of the Sol system, something unexpected happened. Instead of the usual terrified surrender or desperate attack, the humans did something that had never happened before in Velthok history. They requested a meeting. Commander. Thal stared at the communication console in confusion. The message had come from someone called Captain Kim Tai-ho, and his voice had been completely calm. There was no fear, no panic, no desperation, just a polite request for formal contact. Sub-Commander Kess, Thal said slowly, have you ever encountered a species that wanted to talk to us? Never, Commander. They usually scream, beg, or attack. Sometimes all three. Thal's predatory instincts, honed by millions of years of evolution, were telling him something was wrong. Prey animals ran or fought when faced with predators. He did not calmly request conversations. Signal the fleet, he ordered. Reduce speed to half. Something about these humans is different. As the Velthak fleet slowed its approach, none of them could have imagined that they were about to encounter something that would change not just their understanding of the galaxy, but their understanding of what it meant to be truly dangerous. The hunt was about to begin, but for the first time in their history, the Velthak were not sure who was the hunter and who was the prey. Captain Kim Tai-ho stood on the bridge of the Aurora, watching the approaching alien fleet through the main view screen. The ships were massive, dark, and clearly built for war. His crew worked quietly around him, their faces tense but focused. No one was panicking, though every person on the bridge knew they were looking at enough firepower to destroy their entire world. Captain, reported Communications Officer Park Huna, we're receiving another message from the lead ship. Same. As before, submit or be destroyed. Kim Tai-ho nodded calmly. Send our response again. Tell them we would like to arrange a formal meeting to discuss terms. Lieutenant Commander Lee Min-ho, the ship's tactical officer, looked up from his console. Sir, are you sure about this? Those ships could turn us into dust without even slowing down. I'm sure, Lee. Fear makes people do stupid things. We need to stay calm and think clearly. The Aurora was humanity's first deep space combat vessel. Built in the orbital shipyards above Earth, it was small compared to the alien ships, but it represented the best of human engineering. The ship's hull was covered in sensors that could detect energy signatures across multiple spectrums. Its engines could accelerate to speeds that would crush most living beings. And its weapons, though primitive by galactic standards, had been designed by a species that had learned to fight in the most dangerous environment imaginable. Captain Park Hyuna called out, "We're getting a response. They're agreeing to meet." Kim Taiho smiled slightly. "Good signal, Earth Command. Tell them we're proceeding with first contact protocols." Dr. Park Mina entered the bridge carrying a tablet filled with data. As Earth-led xenobiologist, she had spent years studying the possibilities of alien life. Nothing had prepared her for this moment, but she was as ready as any human could be. "Captain," she said, "I've analyzed the energy signatures from their ships. These beings are clearly from a high-gravity world, probably with a dense atmosphere. Their ship designs suggest they evolved as predators." "Predators?" Kim Taiho asked. "Yes, Captain. Look at those ships. All sharp angles, designed to intimidate. The formation they're using is classic pack hunting behavior. They want us to be afraid." Kim Taiho considered this. "Are you afraid, Doctor?" Dr. Park Mina looked out at the alien fleet and thought about her childhood on Earth. She had grown up in the mountains of Korea, where her grandfather had taught her to climb cliffs that would terrify most people. She had studied marine biology by diving into waters filled with sharks and poisonous creatures. She had earned her doctorate by spending months in Antarctica, where a single mistake could mean death. "No, Captain," she said. "I'm curious." A waiter, a small shuttle detached from the Blood Fang and approached the Aurora. The alien vessel was clearly built for beings much larger than humans, with thick armor plating and weapons that looked like they could punch through a mountain. Commander Thal materialized on the Aurora's bridge in a flash of light, accompanied by two of his warriors. The human's first impression was of size and danger. The aliens were enormous, their crystalline skin reflecting the bridge lights like living diamonds. Their claws could clearly tear through steel, and their yellow eyes seemed to catalog every possible threat in the room, but the humans did not back away. They did not show fear. Captain Kim Taiho stepped forward and bowed slightly in greeting. "Welcome aboard the Aurora, Commander. I am Captain Kim Taiho of the Earth Defense Force." "Commander." Thal's predatory instincts were screaming warnings. These small creatures should be cowering before him. But instead, they stood calmly, watching him with what appeared to be professional interest. The female with the data tablet was actually taking notes. "I am Commander Thal of the Veltok Empire," he growled, his voice like grinding stone. "You will surrender your world immediately, or we will take it by force." "We appreciate your position, Commander," Kim Taiho replied politely. "But we would prefer to discuss alternatives. Would you like to see our world before making your final decision?" Thal's mandibles clicked in confusion. "See your world?" "Yes, Commander. We believe that understanding leads to better decisions. Dr. Park here has prepared a presentation about Earth and humanity. Perhaps you would find it interesting." Dr. Park Mina stepped forward, showing no fear of the towering alien warrior. "Commander Thal, we understand that you come from a world quite different from ours. We would like to share information about our respective species." The two Velthak warriors behind Thal shifted nervously. In all their years of conquest, they had never encountered a species that wanted to give them a presentation. Usually, by this point, the local population was either fleeing in terror or launching desperate attacks. "Very well," Thal said slowly. "Show me your world." Dr. Park Mina activated the holographic display. Images of Earth appeared in the air between them. Blue oceans, green continents, white clouds swirling through the atmosphere. "Our world is approximately 12,000 kilometers in diameter," she began. "It has a molten core that generates a magnetic field protecting us from solar radiation. The surface is 71% water, which we require for survival." Commander Thal studied the images. "Your world appears pleasant." "Thank you." "Commander, however, appearances can be deceiving. Our world experiences regular natural disasters that would be considered catastrophic by most standards." The display changed to show massive storms, earthquakes, and volcanic eruptions. Thal watched with growing interest as the humans described hurricanes with winds that could level cities, earthquakes that could split continents, and volcanic eruptions that could change global weather patterns. These events occur regularly, he asked. Yes, Commander. We have adapted to living with constant natural threats. Our species has survived ice ages, supervolcanic eruptions, and asteroid impacts that caused mass extinctions. Lieutenant Lee Gin-ho stepped forward. Commander, may I ask about your homeworld? Thal's eyes narrowed. Korthok Prime is a world of strength. Gravity is 3 times what you experience here. The atmosphere burns with volcanic gases. Only the strong survive. That sounds challenging, Lee Jin-ho said respectfully. We have areas on Earth with similar conditions. Our people sometimes visit active volcanoes for research and recreation. Recreation. Thal's voice carried a note of disbelief. Yes, Commander. Call it extreme sports. Some humans enjoy challenging themselves against dangerous environments. Dr. Park Mina changed the display to show humans climbing mountains, diving into deep ocean trenches, and skiing down steep slopes at high speed. The Velthak warriors watched in fascination as these small, fragile-looking beings deliberately put themselves in situations that looked extremely dangerous. Your people do this voluntarily? Thal asked. Yes, Commander. We find that challenging ourselves against danger makes us stronger and more capable. Engineer Choi Yuna joined the conversation. Commander, you mentioned that your world's gravity is 3 times ours. We have training facilities on Earth where our athletes and soldiers regularly exercise under similar conditions. We call it high-G training. You train under 3 times gravity? One of the Veltak warriors asked. Some of our elite soldiers train under even higher gravity loads, Choi Yuna replied. It helps them perform better in combat situations. Commander Thal was beginning to feel confused. These humans were describing activities that sounded like standard Veltak military training, but they were calling it recreation and sports. How could such a weak-looking species voluntarily subject themselves to deadly challenges? Show me your warriors, he demanded. Captain Kim Tai-ho nodded.
Certainly, Commander. But first, may I ask what you consider to be the qualities of a good warrior?
Strength, courage, and the will to fight until death, Thal replied immediately. I see. Those are admirable qualities, Commander. We share similar values, though we might express them differently. The display changed to show human military training. The Velthak watched as human soldiers ran through obstacle courses, practiced hand-to-hand combat, and performed exercises that pushed their bodies to the limit. Your soldiers train in groups? Thal observed. Yes, Commander. We believe that. Cooperation makes us stronger. Our military units are taught to work together, to support each other, and to never leave anyone behind, even if it means death, Thal asked. Especially if it means death, Kim Tai-ho replied quietly. We have a saying, no one fights alone. The bridge fell silent as the implications of this statement settled over both species. The Velthak were beginning to understand that these humans might be more than they appeared. Commander Thal looked around the bridge at the calm, confident faces of the human crew. These beings showed no fear, no desperation, no panic. They were facing certain death, and yet they were offering to share information and discuss alternatives. Captain Kim, he said slowly, what would you do if I ordered my fleet to attack? Your world right now? Kim Tai-ho met his gaze steadily. We would fight, Commander. We would fight with everything we have, for as long as we could, to protect our home and our people. Even though you would certainly lose, especially because we would certainly lose, that is when fighting matters most. It was the first time in his long career as a warrior. Commander Thal felt something he had never experienced before when facing another species. For the first time in his long career as a warrior, Commander Thal felt something he had never experienced before when facing another species. He felt respect. The day the Mightiest Deathworld species encountered humanity, Commander Thal stood in the transport shuttle, watching through the viewport as Earth grew larger before them. The planet looked peaceful from space, with its blue oceans and swirling white clouds. It was hard to believe that this beautiful world could produce beings who showed no fear in the face of certain death. Sub-Commander Kess said. Quietly, are you certain about this surface visit? These humans could be planning a trap. Thal considered this. If they wanted to trap us, they would not have been so open about their capabilities. No, Kess. I think these humans are exactly what they appear to be. The question is, what are they really? The shuttle landed at a military base somewhere on Earth's largest continent. As the Velthok emerged from their vessel, they were greeted by Captain Kim Tai-ho and several other humans in military uniforms. Welcome to Earth, Commander, Kim Tai-ho said. Hope you will find your visit educational. The first thing that struck Thal was the air. It was thin compared to Korthok Prime, but it carried scents of growing things and water. The gravity was light, making him feel like he could leap incredible distances. The sky was a color he had never seen before, a soft blue that seemed to go on forever. Your world is very different from ours, Thal observed. Yes, Commander. Does not mean easier. Come, let me show you something. They walked across the base toward a large building. Along the way, Thal saw human soldiers going about their daily training. They were running in formation, carrying heavy packs, and practicing combat maneuvers. What surprised him was that they were doing this voluntarily, without any signs of fear or coercion. Your soldiers seem to enjoy their training, Thal noted. Many of them do, Commander. We believe that discipline and challenge make us stronger. Our military personnel volunteer for service, and they take pride in their abilities. Inside the building, they entered a large room filled with exercise equipment. Human soldiers were lifting weights, running on machines, and practicing combat techniques. The Velthok watched with growing interest as these small beings pushed themselves to their physical limits. Sergeant Major Won Kyung approached them. He was a compact man with scars on his hands and a calm, confident manner. Commander Thal, I am Sergeant Major Won. Captain Kim has asked me to show you our training methods. Your soldiers train with such intensity, Thal said. What drives them? The desire to be better, Commander, to protect our people and our world. We have a saying, the more you sweat in training, the less you bleed in battle. Won Kyung lead them to a large screen where he began showing videos of human military training. The Velthok watched as soldiers crawled through mud under live fire, jumped from aircraft at high altitude, and practiced fighting in conditions that would challenge even Velthok warriors. This training looks dangerous, Sub-Commander Kess observed. Is Commander? We lose some people in training every year. But we accept this risk because it prepares us for real combat. The video changed to show historical footage of human warfare. The Velthok watched in silence as humans fought in frozen wastelands, burning deserts, and dense jungles. They saw soldiers charging machine gun positions, pilots flying into enemy fire, and medics running into battle zones to save wounded comrades. Your species fights wars against itself? Thal asked. Unfortunately, yes, Commander. We have not yet learned to live in complete peace. But these conflicts have taught us much about warfare and survival. The footage showed human soldiers in impossible situations, fighting against overwhelming odds, never surrendering even when defeat was certain. The Velthok saw men and women who continued fighting even when wounded, who sacrificed themselves to save others, who showed courage that impressed even these hardened alien warriors. Show us more of your warriors, Thal requested. Won Kyung smiled. Commander, I think you misunderstand something about humans. Everyone you have seen today is a warrior. Our soldiers, yes, but also our doctors, our teachers, our engineers. Every human is capable of fighting when necessary. The screen changed to show footage of civilian humans in emergency situations. The Velthok watched as ordinary people ran into burning buildings to save strangers, as doctors worked in war zones to help the wounded, as teachers protected their students from danger. These are not soldiers, Kess said, confused. No, Commander. They are just people. But when their community is threatened, they become warriors. This is the human way. Dr. Song Hyun-yul entered the room, carrying a tablet filled with data. She was a small woman with kind eyes, but when she spoke, her voice carried the authority of someone who understood the darkest aspects of human nature. Commander Thal, I am Dr. Song. I study human psychology and behavior. Perhaps I can help. You understand what you are seeing. Please, Dr. Song, explain to me why your people show no fear. Dr. Song activated her tablet, and images appeared on the main screen. Commander, fear is not absent in humans. We feel fear just like any other species. The difference is what we do with that fear. The images showed humans engaged in what they called extreme sports. The Velthak watched as people threw themselves from high places with only thin cords to stop their fall. As they surfed massive waves that could crush them, as they climbed vertical rock faces with minimal equipment. Your people do this for pleasure? Thal asked in disbelief. Yes, Commander. We seek out danger and challenge because it makes us feel alive. We have a saying, courage is not the absence of fear, but action in spite of fear. The display changed to show human children playing games that looked like combat training. Young humans were chasing each other, competing in physical contests, and engaging in mock battles that would terrify the young of most species. Even your children train for war, Kess asked. They play Commander. But yes, their play teaches them skills they may need as adults. Human children learn to compete, to overcome challenges, and to work together under pressure. Dr. Song brought up medical data showing human physical capabilities. Commander, you mentioned that your world has 3 times our gravity. This makes you stronger, yes. But it also makes you specialists. Humans evolved on a world with moderate gravity, which made us adaptable. The data showed humans functioning in environments from the deepest ocean trenches to the highest mountain peaks, from frozen polar regions to scorching deserts. We cannot match your strength, Commander, but we can survive in environments that would kill most species. And more importantly, we can adapt quickly to new challenges. Thal studied the data with growing amazement. Your people can function in all these environments? The right equipment and training? Yes. But the key is our mental adaptability. Humans do not give up. When faced with an impossible situation, we find a way to survive or die trying. The room fell silent as the implications of this sank in. The Velthak were beginning to understand that they were not dealing with a weak species, but with something far more dangerous. A species that had learned to thrive in the face of constant danger. Commander, Dr. Song said quietly, "May I ask you something?" "Yes, Dr. Song." "Your people are clearly powerful warriors. You have conquered many worlds. But what happens when you face an enemy that cannot be defeated by strength alone?" Thal considered this question. Velthak had never encountered such an enemy. Their overwhelming power had always been sufficient. "I do not know, Dr. Song." "What would you do?" "We would adapt, Commander. We would find a weakness, develop new tactics, and keep fighting until we found a way to win. Or we would die trying." One Kyun stepped forward. "Commander, would you like to see our most elite warriors in action?" "Yes, Sergeant Major. Show me your best." The screen displayed footage of human special forces in action. The Velthak watched as small teams of humans infiltrated enemy positions, rescued hostages from impossible situations, and completed missions. That seemed beyond the capabilities of such small beings. "How many warriors do you have like this?" Thal asked. "Thousands, Commander. And behind them, millions of ordinary humans who can become warriors when necessary." Sub-Commander Kess leaned forward. "Commander, I am beginning to understand why these humans requested a meeting instead of simply surrendering." Thal nodded slowly. "They were not afraid of us, Kess. They were evaluating us as potential threats." Dr. Song smiled. "Commander, humans have survived ice ages, volcanic eruptions, plagues, and wars that killed millions. We have learned that survival requires both strength and wisdom. Sometimes the wisest choice is to fight. Sometimes it is to talk." "And which choice is this?" Thal asked. "That depends on you, Commander. You here as conquerors or as potential allies?" The question hung in the air like a challenge. Thal realized that for the first time in his military career, he was facing an enemy that might be more dangerous than the Velthak Empire itself. Not because they were stronger, but because they would never stop fighting. "Dr. Song," he said finally, "I would like to see more of your world. I think I am beginning to understand why the universe should fear humanity. The universe should not fear us, Commander, Dr. Song replied, but it should respect us. Just as we are learning to respect you. Outside the building, the sun was setting over the military base. As darkness fell, lights began to appear across the landscape, marking the presence of millions of humans going about their daily lives. Each one a potential warrior. Each one willing to fight to the death for their world. Commander Thal stood looking out at those lights, and for the first time in his long career, he wondered if the Velthok Empire had finally met its match. Warprime Vorthok stood in the command center of the massive dreadnought Worldrender. Studying the reports from Commander Thal with growing fury, the 47th Hunting Fleet had been in the Sol system for 3 cycles, and still these humans had not surrendered. Worse, Thal's reports spoke of these primitive beings with something that sounded dangerously like respect. This is unacceptable, Vorthok growled to his assembled commanders. A single primitive world has delayed our expansion for too long. The High Council grows impatient. Warprime Vorthok was the most feared military commander in Velthok history. He had conquered more worlds than any other warrior, and his tactics were studied in every military academy in the Empire. Standing 9 feet tall with scars covering his crystalline skin, he represented everything the Velthok valued: strength, ruthlessness, and absolute victory. Warprime reported Intelligence Commander Zarek, "Our scouts indicate the humans have been using the delay to prepare defenses. They've moved ships throughout their system and appear to be coordinating some kind of resistance." Resistance? Vorthok's voice carried deadly amusement. What can these soft creatures possibly do? Against the Grand Armada? The Grand Armada was the largest military force the Velthok Empire had ever assembled. 5,000 ships of various sizes carrying enough firepower to destroy entire star systems. The smallest vessels in the fleet were larger than Earth's biggest cities. "Deploy the fleet in standard overwhelming formation," Vorthok ordered. "I want these humans to see death approaching from every direction. When they realize the futility of resistance, they will surrender." But as the Grand Armada moved deeper into the Sol system, something unexpected happened. The human ships did. Not massed together for a desperate final battle. Instead, they seemed to disappear entirely. "Where are they?" Vorthok demanded. "Unknown, Warprime," replied Scanner Prime Kellish. "Our sensors show empty space where their fleet should be. They must be hiding behind their planets or moons. Standard coward behavior. Begin planetary bombardment of their homeworld." Admiral Bei Sun-Hua watched the massive alien fleet from the bridge of the stealth cruiser Phantom. The human ships had not disappeared. They had simply learned to hide. Earth scientists had spent the past cycles developing new technology based on Velthok's sensor weaknesses discovered during their meeting. "All units. This is Admiral Bei." She broadcast on encrypted channels. "The enemy is deploying exactly as predicted. Begin Operation Ghostwalk." Across the solar system, human ships began to move. They used the gravitational fields of planets and moons to mask their approach, employed new stealth technology to avoid detection, and coordinated their movements with a precision that would have impressed the Velthok if they had been able to see it. The first sign that something was wrong came when the Velthok forward scouts simply vanished from their sensors. No distress calls, no explosion signatures, just empty space where ships had been moments before. "Warprime," Kellish reported. "Nervously, we have lost contact with the 12th, 15th, and 23rd Scout Squadrons." "Equipment malfunction," Vorthok said dismissively. "Continue the advance." But as the Grand Armada pushed deeper into the system, more ships began to disappear. Not destroyed in glorious battle, but simply gone, as if they had never existed. Captain No Jihei piloted her fighter through the asteroid belt, her ship's hull barely larger than a Velthok escape pod. Behind her flew 11 other fighters, each one carrying weapons that could punch through the heaviest armor. "Ghost Squadron, this is Ghost Leader," she transmitted. "Target the command ship's sensor array. Hit fast and get out." The human fighters moved like shadows through space, using the asteroids for cover and striking at the massive Velthok vessels with surgical precision. They did not try to destroy the enemy ships. Instead, they targeted communication arrays, sensor clusters, and Weapon guidance systems. What are they doing? Vorthok demanded, as reports of these pinprick attacks came in. They appear to be targeting our systems rather than our holes, Warprime, Zarek reported. Our weapons are still functional, but our ability to coordinate is being disrupted. Clever, Vorthok admitted grudgingly. They are fighting like pack hunters rather than warriors. Very well, signal all ships to fire at will. If we cannot coordinate, we will simply destroy everything in this system. The Grand Armada began firing in all directions, their massive weapons turning asteroids into dust and empty space into a deadly storm of energy. But the human ships continued to appear and disappear like ghosts, striking at vulnerable points and vanishing before the Velthok could respond. Lieutenant. Commander Park Sehan led his destroyer squadron in a high-speed attack run on the enemy formation's flank. His ships moved at accelerations that would have killed most aliens. Using their superior maneuverability to avoid the Velthek's heavy weapons, all ships target the supply vessels, he ordered. Without supplies, even the strongest army will fail. The human attack was nothing like what the Velthak had experienced in their thousands of years of conquest. Instead of brave but futile charges, the humans fought with calculated precision. They turned the Velthak's strengths against them, using their size and power as weaknesses. Warprime Kellish said urgently, "The enemy is using our own weapons against us. When we fire our main guns, they use the energy discharge to mask their approach vectors." Vorthok studied the tactical display with growing respect and frustration. These humans were not fighting like desperate prey. They were fighting like experienced predators who had studied their enemy and found its weaknesses. "They are using our power against us," he said quietly. Brilliant. The battle continued for hours, with human ships appearing and disappearing throughout the Velthek formation. They did not try to match the aliens' firepower. Instead, they used speed, stealth, and superior tactics to level the playing field. Colonel Yoon Min-jae led a boarding party onto a damaged Velthek cruiser. His Marines moved through the ship's corridors with practiced efficiency, capturing key systems and gathering intelligence. "Colonel," reported Sergeant Kim Ji-soo, "we have secured the ship's database. Intelligence Command will want to see this." "Copy that, Sergeant. Plant the charges and let's get out of here." As the human boarding parties withdrew, the Velthak ship exploded in a brilliant flash of light. But the real victory was not the destruction of one ship. It was the intelligence gathered from its computers. Back on the world render, Vorthok was beginning to understand what he was facing. These humans were not just brave. They were intelligent, adaptable, and utterly ruthless when threatened. "Warprime," Zarek said quietly, "perhaps we should reconsider our approach. You suggest retreat?" Vorthek's voice was dangerous. "I suggest we are facing an enemy unlike any we have encountered. They're not fighting to win. They're fighting to survive. And a species that fights for survival will do things that others will not." As if to prove his point, the tactical display showed a new development. Human ships were positioning themselves between the Velthak fleet and Earth, clearly preparing for a final stand. "They know they cannot defeat us," Vorthok said. "Yes, Warprime, but they are going to try anyway. They are going to make us pay a price we may not be willing to pay." For the first time in his military career, Warprime, Vorthok found himself facing an enemy that truly frightened him. Not because they were stronger, but because they would never stop fighting. The hunt had become something else entirely. And Vorthok was no longer certain who was the predator and who was the prey. "Signaled the fleet," he ordered. "Prepare for maximum engagement. If these humans want to fight, we will give them one they will never forget." But as the Grand Armada prepared for what should have been an easy victory, sensors across the fleet began detecting something impossible. More ships were approaching the system. Ships that did not match human or Velthok design signatures. Something else was coming. Something that would change everything. The prison cell was unlike anything Colonel Yoon Min-jae had expected. Instead of the dark, cramped space he had imagined, he found himself in a large room with proper lighting, clean air, and what appeared to be recreational facilities. The walls were made of the same crystalline material as Velthak skin, and the furniture was sized for beings much larger than humans. Min-jae had been captured during a reconnaissance. Mission when his stealth ship had been caught in a gravity trap. He had expected torture, interrogation, or immediate execution. Instead, he had been treated with what could only be described as respect. The door opened with a soft chime, and Commander Thal entered. The massive Veltak warrior carried himself with the bearing of a professional soldier, and his yellow eyes studied Min-jae with genuine curiosity. Colonel Yoon Min-jae Thal said, his voice carrying less hostility than Min-jae had expected. "Aim Commander Thal. I hope you have found your accommodations adequate." "Better than I expected, Commander," Min-jae replied honestly. "Are all your prisoners treated this well?" "All worthy prisoners, yes. The Velthak believe that how we treat captured warriors reflects our own honor." Thal sat down on a chair that looked far too small for his massive frame. "Colonel, I must ask you something. Why do your people continue to fight? You know you cannot win." Min-jae considered the question carefully. "Commander, why do your people fight? For glory, for the Empire, for the right to prove our strength? Then you understand, Commander. Fight for our home, our families, our freedom. Fight because surrender is not an option." Thal nodded slowly. "I have studied your military history, Colonel. Your species has a remarkable record of victory against overwhelming odds. Sometimes, Commander, sometimes we lose everything, but we keep fighting anyway, even when defeat is certain, especially when defeat is certain. That is when fighting matters most." The conversation was interrupted by an urgent chime from Thal's communication device. His expression changed immediately from curiosity to alarm. "Colonel, I must leave you. Something has happened." On the bridge of the World Render, War Prime Vorthok studied the sensor readings with growing concern. The new ships approaching the system were unlike anything in the Velthak databases. They were massive, dark, and seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. "What are those vessels?" he demanded. Intelligence Commander Zarek worked frantically. At his console, "War Prime, the computer has identified them. They are Devourer ships." The bridge fell silent. Every Velthak knew the legends of the Devourers, ancient machines that had consumed entire galaxies before disappearing into the void. They were myths, stories told to frighten young warriors. "That is impossible," Vorthak said. "The Devourers are extinct. They have been gone for millions of years," swore Prime. "These ships match the ancient descriptions perfectly, and they are heading directly for this system." On the Aurora, Admiral Bae Sunwoo was receiving similar reports from her sensor operators. The human fleet had detected the approaching vessels, and their computers were running every analysis possible. "Admiral," reported Communications Officer, "Parkuna, we're receiving a transmission from the Velthok flagship. They want to speak with you. Put them through." War Prime Vorthok appeared on the main screen, his massive form filling the display. For the first time since the conflict began, he looked genuinely concerned. "Admiral Bae," he said without preamble, "we have a problem that is larger than our current conflict." "I see the same sensor readings you do, War Prime." "What are those ships?" "Ancient enemies, Admiral. Machines that existed before most organic life evolved. They are called Devourers, and they consume entire worlds." Bae studied the alien commander's expression. "What do you suggest, War Prime? A temporary alliance?
Ow.
Our conflict is meaningless if we all die." Admiral Bae considered this for a long moment. Everything in her training told her not to trust an enemy, but everything in her experience told her that sometimes survival required difficult choices. "I will need to consult with my government, War Prime. We do not have time for politics, Admiral. Those ships will be here in cycles if we do not work. Together, both our species will be destroyed." The communication ended, leaving Bae alone with a decision that could determine the fate of both species. She looked around the bridge at her crew, seeing the same mix of uncertainty and determination on every face. "Open a channel to Earth Command," she ordered. "Priority Alpha." Back on the Velthok flagship, Vorthok was having his own difficult conversation with the High Council. The crystalline figures on the communication screen radiated disapproval. "You suggest allying with these humans?" asked High Counselor Dreth. "They are primitives, barely worthy of our attention." "With respect, High Counselor, these primitives have fought our Grand Armada to a standstill. They are not weak, they're not Velthic. another counselor interjected. We do not ally with lesser species. Then we will face the devourers alone, Vorthok said bluntly, and we will lose. The silence that followed was telling. The High Council knew the legends as well as any Velthic. The Devourers had once consumed entire star systems, turning living worlds into empty husks. Very well, High Counselor, Dref said finally. You have authorization to form a temporary alliance. But the moment the Devourer threat is ended, you will resume the conquest of these humans. Understood, High Counselor. Commander Thal stood in the corridor outside Colonel Minge's cell, considering his options. The approaching threat changed everything. The Veltak needed every advantage they could get. And the humans had already proven they could fight in ways the Veltak had never imagined. He opened the cell door and entered. Colonel, I have a proposition for you. I'm listening, Commander. Your people and mine are about to face an enemy that could destroy both our species. We need to work together. Minje studied the alien commander's face. What kind of cooperation are you talking about? A full military alliance? Combined fleets? Shared intelligence? Coordinated tactics? Your people's adaptability combined with our strength. And after this threat is defeated, Thal hesitated. I do not know, Colonel. But I believe both our species will be changed by what is coming. The first test of the alliance came sooner than expected. Devourer ships had sent scout probes into the system. And both human and Velthok forces engaged them simultaneously. Captain? Noji found herself flying in formation with Velthok. Fighters. Their massive ships providing cover while her smaller craft used speed and maneuverability to attack the enemy probes. Ghost Leader, this is Velthik Squadron Commander Keth, came a voice over the communication channel. We will provide covering fire. Strike at the probe's core. Copy that, Commander Keth. Beginning attack run. The combined assault was devastatingly effective. Human precision targeting and Velthak firepower destroyed the probes before they could report back to the main fleet. Well done, Ghost Leader, Keth transmitted. Your tactics are most impressive. Thank you, Commander. Your covering fire was perfect. It was the beginning of something unprecedented in galactic history. Two species that had been enemies were learning to fight as one. Dr. Song Hanyul worked alongside Velthak scientists in a combined research facility hastily established on the Aurora. The alien researchers were fascinated by human psychological profiles, while the humans studied Velthak tactical doctrine. Dr. Song said Research Prime Vex, your species' ability to function under extreme stress is remarkable. How do you train this capability? We do not train it, Research Prime. We live it. Human life is constant adaptation to new challenges. Fascinating. And this makes you better warriors? It makes us survivors, Research Prime. And survivors can become whatever they need to be. The alliance was working, but both species knew the real test was still coming. The Devourer main fleet was approaching, and when it arrived, everything would change. Warprime Vorthok and Admiral Bay stood together on the bridge of the combined command vessel, watching the approaching enemy fleet. The Devourers had ships that dwarfed even the largest Velthik vessels, and their numbers seemed endless. Admiral Vorthak said quietly, I want you to know that fighting alongside your people has been an honor. The honor is mutual, Warprime. Whatever happens next, we face it together. As the Devourer fleet entered the system, both species prepared for a battle that would determine the fate of all organic life in the galaxy. The universe was about to learn what happened when the two most dangerous species in known space fought side by side. The combined fleet faced the Devourer armada at the edge of the Sol system. General Lim Soyoung stood beside Warprime Vorthok on the bridge of the United Command ship, watching as thousands of enemy vessels emerged from the darkness of space. The Devourer ships were massive, angular things that seemed to absorb light itself, making them appear as holes in the fabric of reality. How many? Vorthok asked quietly. Our sensors count over 10,000 vessels, Warprime, reported the combined intelligence staff. And more are still arriving. General Lim studied the tactical display with the calm focus that had made her one of humanity's most respected. Military leaders, Warprime, we cannot match their numbers or their firepower. We need to be smarter. What do you suggest, General? We use what we learned, fighting each other. Your people's strength, my people's adaptability. We make them come to us. The battle plan that emerged was unlike anything either species had attempted before. Human ships would use their stealth and speed to harass the enemy, while Felthok vessels provided the heavy firepower needed to destroy the massive Devourer ships. Captain Kim Tai-ho piloted the Aurora into position behind a cluster of asteroids. Around him, the combined fleet spread out across the system, each ship knowing its role in the desperate plan. All ships, this is General Lim, came the voice over the communication channel. Remember, we are not trying to destroy all of them. We are trying to survive long enough to reach their central command ship. The Devourer fleet began its advance, and the first phase of the battle commenced. Human fighters swarmed around the enemy ships like angry insects, targeting sensor arrays and communication systems. Velthak heavy cruisers fired from long range, their powerful weapons punching through Devourer armor. Commander Thal found himself fighting alongside Colonel Min-jae, their ships moving in perfect coordination as they struck at a massive enemy vessel. Colonel, target the weapon clusters on the port side, Thal transmitted. Copy that, Commander. Beginning attack. Run. The two warriors, who had been enemies days before, now fought as perfectly synchronized partners. Min-jae's fighter used its speed to avoid the enemy's defensive fire, while Thal's cruiser provided covering fire and heavy weapons support. Direct hit, Colonel. That section is down. Excellent shooting, Commander. Moving to the next target. Across the battlefield, similar partnerships had formed. Human and Velthic crews worked together with an efficiency that amazed both species. The human's ability to adapt quickly to new situations, combined with the Velthic's natural warrior instincts, created a fighting force that was greater than the sum of its parts. But the Devourers were not easily defeated. As the battle progressed, it became clear that the enemy's numbers were simply too great. For every Devourer ship destroyed, 2 more took its place. General, reported Admiral Bay from her position on the fleet's left flank, we're being pushed back. The enemy is adapting to our tactics. I see it, Admiral. All ships, begin Phase 2. We're going for the command ship. The combined fleet suddenly changed formation, with every ship turning toward the center of the Devourer fleet. It was a desperate gamble, but it was their only chance. Captain Nojihei led her fighter squadron directly into the heart of the enemy formation. Behind her flew both human and Velthic pilots, their ships working together to clear a path through the massive enemy vessels. Ghost Squadron. This is Ghost Leader. We're going in fast and hard. Stay close and watch each other's backs.
Copy.
That Ghost Leader, came the reply from Velthak Squadron Commander Keth. My warriors are ready. The combined squadron dove into the enemy formation, their ships moving like a single organism. Human fighters used their agility to avoid enemy fire, while Velthic ships provided the firepower needed to punch through the enemy's defenses. But the cost was enormous. Ships were being destroyed faster than they could be replaced. Brave pilots from both species died protecting their comrades, their sacrifice buying precious seconds for the mission to continue. Commander Keth is down, reported one of the Velthak pilots. His ship was destroyed, saving Ghost 4. Copy that, GA replied, her voice tight with emotion. He died a warrior's death. We will honor his sacrifice. The battle raged for hours, with both species fighting with a desperation born of necessity. They had learned to trust each other, to fight together, to die for each other. General Lim watched the tactical display as the fleet pressed deeper into the enemy formation. The casualties were mounting, but they were getting closer to their target. Warprime, she said to Vorthok, we're not going to make it at this rate. We need something more. Warthok studied the display, his tactical mind working through the possibilities. General, what if we combine our most desperate tactics? What do you mean? Your people's willingness to sacrifice themselves and our people's ability to survive impossible odds. Combined suicide mission. Lim considered this. He was asking brave warriors to die for a chance at victory. But it might be their only option. Do it, she said quietly. The message went out to volunteers from both species. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Hundreds of pilots from both fleets volunteered for what was certainly a one-way mission. Lieutenant Lee Jin-ho found himself flying alongside Sub-Commander Kess as they approached the massive Devourer command ship. Around them, dozens of other volunteers prepared for the final assault. Sub-Commander Lee transmitted, "It has been an honor fighting beside your people. The honor is mine, Lieutenant. Your species has taught us much about courage." The volunteer squadrons dove toward the command ship, their weapons blazing. The Devourer defenses were overwhelming, but the combined force pressed on, each destroyed ship bringing the survivors closer to their target. "This is Lieutenant Lee," he transmitted. "As his ship took critical damage, I'm going in. Tell my family I died fighting for humanity." "I will tell them you died fighting for all of us," Kess replied as she followed him into the enemy fire. The explosion that followed destroyed the Devourer command ship and sent shockwaves through the enemy fleet. Without central coordination, the Devourer ships began to malfunction and shut down. The battle was over. The combined fleet had won, but at a terrible cost. Half of both fleets had been destroyed. Thousands of brave warriors from both species were dead. General Lim and Warprime Vorthok stood together on the bridge, watching as the surviving Devourer ships drifted powerlessly through space. "Did it," Vorthok said quietly. "We actually did it," Yeslam replied. "But look at the cost." Around them, the survivors of both fleets were working together to rescue the wounded and recover the dead. Human medics worked alongside Velthok healers, while engineers from both species repaired damaged ships. General Vorthok said after a long silence, "I cannot return to the old ways. Not after this. Neither can we, Warprime. Too much has changed." Over the following cycles, as both species worked to rebuild their fleets and heal their wounds, something unprecedented happened. The alliance that had been born of necessity began to grow into something more. Human scientists worked with Velthak researchers to develop new technologies. Velthak warriors trained alongside human soldiers, each learning from the other's strengths. Trade agreements were signed, cultural exchanges were established, and slowly, two species that had been enemies became something the galaxy had never seen before. They became partners. The formal signing of the Terran Velthak Compact took place on a space station built jointly by both species. General Lim and Warprime Vorthok stood together as they signed the treaty that would reshape the galaxy. "The universe will never be the same," Vorthok observed. "No," Lim agreed. "It will be better. We have proven that even the most unlikely allies can find common ground." As news of the alliance spread throughout the galaxy, other species began to take notice. The two most dangerous species in known space had not only stopped fighting each other, they had become stronger together. The Compact established joint colonies, shared military commands, and cultural exchange programs. Human adaptability combined with Velthak strength created solutions to problems that had plagued the galaxy for millennia. Captain Kim Taiho, now serving as the first human ambassador to the Velthak Empire, stood on the observation deck of the joint station. Watching as ships from both species worked together in perfect harmony, Commander Thal joined him. The two former enemies, now close friends and allies. "Do you think it will last?" Thal asked. "I think it has too," Kim replied. "We have seen what we can accomplish together. There's no going back. The galaxy is safer with us as allies than as enemies." "Yes, but more than that. We have become something new. Something that has never existed before." As they watched, a new class of ship undocked from the station. It was built using both human and Velthak technology, crewed by members of both species, and designed to explore the unknown regions of space. The universe had indeed changed forever. The day the mightiest Deathworld species encountered humanity, they had found not enemies, but kindred spirits. Together, they represented a force that would ensure the galaxy's survival against any threat. The stars themselves seemed to shine brighter, as if the universe itself approved of what these two species had accomplished. And in the depths of space, other ancient threats stirred, sensing the change. but they would find the galaxy defended by something new and unprecedented. The combined might of two species that had learned the most important lesson of all, that strength comes not from conquest, but from cooperation, not from domination, but from understanding. The universe would never be the same, and it was better for it.